Okay, my number two film that shaped my view of America is Avatar from 2009. Film written and directed by James Cameron, starring Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Sigourney Weaver, Stephen Lang. IMDb plot summary. A paraplegic Marine dispatched to the moon Pandora on a unique mission becomes torn between following his orders and protecting the world he feels is his home. So probably similar to Home Alone, which is also the number one movie of the year it came out. I'm sure a lot of folks have seen this film. I saw it at the time several times in theaters. Just kind of aged really well for me personally. And what this movie kind of hit me actually on a rewatch at the time on really being helping me see at least the United States through like a different lens. I mean, this is not anything that I didn't know. And the fact that we are a, settler colonial society, we were founded by Europeans coming over to a country that already had an indigenous population on it. We were here to, extract resources from that land. All the different European powers were coming here to make money, which is what the plot of this movie's about. And I never really looked, I kind of, like, maybe this gets back into the marketing thing. Like I knew that as a fact, but when we're taught things in school, it's a lot from the European perspective of, oh, there's people, they want to find freedom and set up this democracy and all these different things. That is not saying that isn't true, but the base underlying motivation behind all those initial settlers who were coming over was all economic. And it was about extracting those resources. And even in a way, the American Revolution was started by a group of a class that was trying to make more money, and the crown was getting in the way of that. It wasn't necessarily about a lot of the other things that, we were taught in schools, or at least I was taught in schools. And it was funny, like this movie, for some reason, made me kind of reposition America in my mind of like, okay, well, basically, and not that this is like disparaging of it either. It's like, okay, well, at the end of the day, this is why we were founded. This is what our purpose was. And there was a cost to that too, which was, again, the indigenous population. So, there's a lot of things going on in this movie. And this was actually the main theme that resonated with me the most. I mean, there's comments on, environmentalism and all these other things that, yeah, they come up. But to me, this movie is about colonialism, capitalism, imperialism, which are three things I associate with the United States.
Yeah, the same pretty much. And sort of this kind of macho attitude that we can sort of go anywhere and
Oh,
make
right.
it
Yeah.
our own or fix it, even though it needs no fixing. But ultimately, it is always about greed and power and money, right? Which is sort of what it's not just an American thing. It's sort of it's a human thing. I think it drives
Mm-hmm.
everybody in
Mm-hmm.
in all sorts of ways. So in a funny way, Jim Cameron has sort of become, even though I know he's doing this to make a point and this he's not for this, but his enterprise of putting in all this money, and I see the same themes in him too. He's sort of, in my mind, the poster child of America and blockbuster filmmaking. Big is better,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and yes, there's a lot of technological advancement in it, and it brings all these people together, and billions were spent and billions were made, but it's also kind of gross in that sense, because it's just like so much, like
Mm.
nobody asked for this, but I'm fine. I'm happy that this exists, but it's just too much, which is another aspect of sort of America and the West and such, like too much, which,
That's a really interesting point. Yeah,
yeah.
Cameron is Canadian, but I
Oh,
agree actually that no, but I agree honestly that a lot of a lot of his films are touching on these similar themes, and there is this contradiction there, right? Of this is like the biggest movie that's ever been made and made all this money, and there was a lot of messages in the movie sort of are going against the thing that it is, which it is American actually. This is a nation built
yeah.
on total contradictions. Like I was just mentioning, I think initial founding of the country was one thing, and then we're telling ourselves something else, which I'm not saying that wasn't true about the freedom and all those sort of things. But there is this inherent contradiction at the heart of the US. I mean, you can even take it as far as everyone's created equal, and yet, made sure parts of this country for the first almost 100 years was built on the backs of slaves. Okay, there's a contradiction right there in literally the founding of this country that I think is something that I've wrestled with more in the last 10 years. And really
Mm.
around the time, again, when I saw this movie on a rewatch and was really noticing that there's even a scene in the beginning of the film where Quaritch, who's like the main bad guy, main Marine, is sitting there sort of telling actually it's the introduction to the character, telling all of his, troops, like what their mission is on Pandora. And there's kind of a medium shot and he's standing behind the window with these Venetian blinds on it that are basically it's the American flag that he's standing in front of, like it's at a patent. And that's something that once I realized that, I'm like, okay, well now like the whole thing of what this movie is trying to say is sort of unlocked to me, that is way beyond the surface level environmental messages. It really just is about like what the motivations are behind, again, not only the founding, but a lot of the things we've been doing as a country in the last 200 years is about that exploitation of resources and peoples too. It's both. It's the earth, but it's also other populations around the world, which I find so fascinating that this movie sort of helped bring me to, honestly.
Yeah, makes sense to me. That's kind of how I always looked at it. I will say though, watching this movie again, especially on like a regular screen and not a large screen, is just
it's different.
not.
It hits different.
It's just different. Plus, with the new Avatar, like this doesn't hold up
Visually, you mean?
Visually,
Yeah.
and then also, not that I felt this way when I watched it when it came out, and the only time I watched it because I was so swept up in the spectacular of it. But all the things that really hit me hard in the new movie, which we talked about earlier on the podcast.
Right, we did. I should mention that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The stuff about the dialogues and the on the noseness and the story and all, they're all there in this one too, which I was sort of laughing as the movie was going on. So as I've said before, I'm not a fan.
Right. No, I know. And for me, it's odd, actually. This movie's aged better for me. Like I liked it when I first saw it, and I saw it maybe like 4 times in the theater. I thought it was fine. And the more I've watched it, the more I realized what a kind of like a master work it is from him. And I've appreciated it even more. It's odd. Like even kind of like removing the visual stuff for me has laid bare more of these themes that, yes, it is very simplistic, which I think in movies like this, where the characters actually similar to Blue Velvet too, where the characters aren't really necessarily characters and more like representations of something that the artist is trying to say, you can't nuance that.
It's broad strokes.
Yeah. Exactly. You want the broad strokes because you're trying to say something that is a broad stroke of good and bad, and you shouldn't be doing this and you should be doing this. That's a way to look at the world. Also, maybe why this movie was such a global hit. You do broad, and that's becomes universal. And you know, I know a lot of cultures around the world, indigenous cultures affected by different forms of colonialism, the U.S., European, etc., really resonated a lot with them. And that you know, James Cameron has quoted that he's been surprised that how much these populations will reach out to him and say, "Oh my gosh, I feel seen for the first time through this film," which is just kind of powerful and interesting to me, especially as someone. Yeah, I'm not an indigenous population anywhere, but what he does in this movie is he really makes you side with them as the humans are the bad guys, which are you. So you're rooting against your own kind, which is something too the main character wrestles with. And at the end of the movie, he gives up his human form, and the natives win, which is something that is very different from a lot of other films that touch on similar themes. You always has to be a downer ending, like Dance with Wolves. The Native Americans do get wiped out. Last Samurai, these other movies of similar themes where there's a colonist who's trying to be on the side of the natives. That never works, but Cameron's able to say, you know what, it does work. And not only that, the main character gives up everything that makes him what he is to become fully the natives. Like he goes native in every way he physically could. Like he puts his brain inside of a body of someone else. Who, like Costner couldn't do that in like Dance with Wolves or Tom Cruise in Last Samurai. And that extra angle to me just makes the movie more powerful. I don't know. It hits me more in that sense of like, wow, like really giving it all up fully, like in a way that I could never do, even if I did want to like give up the fact that I'm American and join some other side. I can't. I can only do that so much. I can't go the full way. And the fact that Jake Sully does go the full distance of this movie, I don't know, it's just powerful to me. But yeah, it's odd. Like I don't know why. I've liked this movie more the more times I see it, and maybe it is again because it readjusted my view of this country and what that dichotomy and that contradiction at the heart of America.
Wow, that is powerful. I guess another missed opportunity to kind of play with that in the second movie where you gave up your identity to be somebody else. That can't be easy. That has to come with so much more. You can't just be somebody else, there's so much. To me, that was the big thing because he was so caught up in the visual spectacular that there are all these missed opportunities from a story standpoint to really mine. Because this, what you said, is very powerful, actually, how the first one ends.
Believe me, there's like 4 more coming. So maybe he'll deal with that in Avatar 4. Maybe Avatar 5 will make things different. We'll see. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.